Aloha! So this morning, Amanda got us a wonderful tour down at Lydgate Farms. Now Lydgate Farms does something very special here on the island. They do chocolate, mostly cocoa trees, but also they do a couple other items that we'll go over. But main thing here is the cocoa. So now the cocoa plants, they only grow 15 degrees north and south of the equator. So all the cocoa that produces the chocolate in all the world pretty much comes from just a small strip of tropical islands. Thank goodness Hawaii is one of them. Hawaii is the only state that'll produce cocoa on the, well, pretty much in the United States. So it's the only state that can do that. Now, Kauai has just the right temperatures and everything for it. So there is a wonderful cocoa plant, farm here, and they produce, like I said, cocoa for chocolate. So this here is the cocoa pod. Now it's already been broken open. They actually broke this open for us at the farm so we could try it during the tour. This is what I'll show y'all. This is the cocoa pod. Now these actually come from the cocoa trees. Now the trees, what they do is they'll plant them. It takes about 5 years to grow to maturity. They actually have to top them in a certain way. So they'll grow, so all these come within picking distance. They grow all the way up and down the trunk. They're very resistant to bugs and to most animals, because you can hear that's a very solid shell and rind around the cocoa, pod. And then when you break it open, you have the cocoa nibs inside. Now you can see a whole bunch is missing. We've been munching on it since we were there. You can actually eat these right out of the pod. They have, like if you pull off one, they have two parts to it there. There is this nice white outer flesh, which is really, a really fruity, juicy outer flesh to it. And then inside, I've got one cut in half for you here, is the actual cocoa nib. That's the actual cocoa seed in there. You got the nib in the middle, and then you got the husk on the outside, and then you have that white flesh on the outside of that. So what they do is they take these, they harvest about every 3 weeks. They break them open, they scoop all this stuff out. And let's see if I can get a good grip on this. Well, maybe not. I guess it takes some skill that I don't have yet. But they scoop all this goodness out of there. And they take this and they put this in fairly large bins. And they coat the bottom with banana leaves. Now with it in there with the banana leaves have like a natural yeast on the outside. They ferment there for a little while. I believe it's a couple weeks almost. And as it ferments in there, the bacteria and the enzymes, they get in. There's a natural juice that's released. They actually use that for cooking and some ice creams and stuff around here. And then the cocoa nib gets fermented. Once it's fermented enough, they take it out. They'll put it out on drying tables. They'll let it dry. They'll actually cook the cocoa nib a little bit more, usually through the fermentation process and bacteria that'll cook the cocoa nib. Once it's dried, they actually don't process it here. They send it to a processing plant. I believe it was on Maui, where they roast the cocoa nibs. They shell the cocoa nibs, and then what they do is a process called conching, where they take the actual cocoa nibs, they grind them up to a real fine powder. They mix in the appropriate amount of cocoa butter and milk solids and sugar to make your chocolate. Now the chocolate that they have here, they have several. They make bars specifically for them, and they sell them here on the island. And it's Lydgate Farms. They do like a dark chocolate, which is 70%. And then they do a milk chocolate, which I believe is a 30%. Now they also have a couple other different items as well. We picked up what's called brewing chocolate. That's pretty much the cocoa nibs and the shells. They grind them up. They're still dry, so they didn't add any of the cocoa liquor back in, or the cocoa butter, or any of the sugar or milk or anything like that. This we're going to be using for, we'll either be using it to add into our coffee, or we're actually looking at making like a cocoa latte. So we'll mix it with the hot milk, let it sit for a while. Pour it through a strainer, and then froth it up, and we'll get like a real nice cocoa latte. We'll see how that turns out, but it seems like it'll be really good. Now once they turn it into chocolate and all that, it's processed. It comes back on the island. They sell it here. The store is here. But they also have their own vanilla beans. Now, vanilla bean plants are very finicky. They're kind of a pain in the backside. That's why it's quite expensive when you get vanilla. Usually, it's made from a vine. The vine produces flowers once a year and usually produces those flowers for about 10 hours. It's pollinated within those 10 hours or it doesn't produce vanilla. So all the vanilla that's produced by these guys, they actually go through by hand and they take the stamen and they hand pollinate it. So whenever you get a vanilla bean, all those little dots inside, that's one cross pollination. So as much as they can get it between the two is as much the size of the bean as well as much of the vanilla flavor you're going to get into it. So they do it for as long as they possibly can. Once it's done for the day, the flower will pretty much fall off, the stamen will extend, and then you've got your vanilla bean. Now the vanilla bean will sit on the vine for about 9 months maturing, and then they can either leave it on the vine to finish maturing and dry out on the vine, or they can take it off, and what they do go through a process where they boil it and shock it and boil it and shock it just to stop it from growing anymore, and then they let it chill out for about 3-4 weeks and dry out, and that's how they get their vanilla beans. All right, that's about it. So mahalo, aloha, and thank you for watching.